Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where you get a look behind the book. Today I am joined by the lovely Maren Jenner. She is the author of The Cupcake Standard, The Wrong Brother, which was my favorite, and The Lake Effect. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited. Read The Wrong Brother about a month ago, and I loved it. And I cannot wait for Calliope and Sebastian and Meg and Silas. I'm so excited for that one. So that one will be really fun because you've already given us little teasers in the book. So I'm very excited.
It's fun having it come out, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next one for sure. I just submitted all the edits for book 2, so coming out in April. So
I'm excited. I was just going to ask that, like, when are they coming? So that'll be nice. It'll be a nice little spring treat for us to read. So when you are working on a book or working on a series, how do you go about, picking your location or picking what you're going to write about? Is it like it come to you as like a scene or the characters come?
usually I start with a scene, and then the characters kind of come. I am very much a pantser, and I kind of get to know the characters along the way. So I've tried outlining. Outlining doesn't work for me. It always goes off the rails. So I usually will just use my first draft as my outline. And I know it's going to be rough, and I know I'm going to have to go back and add more emotion. And, by the time I get done, I know the characters well enough to be like, well, they wouldn't do that, or I need to tweak this. So then they have these extra hobbies or whatever. But that's usually how I do it. And trying to remember what I started with. Yeah, there's like a scene in the middle of The Wrong Brother that I started with. And then as all the brothers came in, I'm like, well, this has to be a series. I need one for each brother. They're all so much fun and so different. And it's been a lot of fun trying to explore them and their different relationships and their different personalities. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I like their dynamic because it's like, well, as far as the brothers go, like you could totally see a group of brothers living together in college and like having that like dynamic. But then you add in the best friend and she's living there and it's just like, and then the other one, they're all there. And I'm like, that is like a setup for like so many good things. So I was like, this is great. Definitely. So who was like the first characters that came to you?
It was Sean and Leah, and it was like after she had decided that she wasn't going to be with Sebastian anymore and why. And then the whole realizing that she was into actually Sean, and it wasn't just whole other. It didn't start off as like an enemies to lovers. This is my. All these have been written once already, and I wrote them in single point of view. And I got to the 4th book, and I'm like, crap, he wants his own point of view.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back and do these. And it actually worked out really well. I love how it turned out and the extra dynamics of that more enemies to lovers. I mean, the extra tension there and everything has really added another layer to the story that I absolutely love.
Yeah, I loved it. You did it really well because at first you're like, what is his deal? Like, why is he like that? And I'm like, is he just a jerk? I'm like, what is his problem? And then slowly, like, he's like, you right in there, oh, he's looking at her, or like he said, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. And it was really good the way that was set up. And I love Sebastian because of his, and I can never say the word right. I can't even say it right now. Now I'm like in my brain, but like he's eccentric. There we go. He's different, and he's on the spectrum, and I live on the spectrum. I have 3 on the spectrum people in my home. And so I loved that you had him in there and that he had his point of view and everybody supported him. I love that dynamic of it too. So I'm excited to see him in the second book and get more of that.
It was really difficult to write his point of view, trying to be, get into his head, because that's an interesting place to be. But I hope I did it well. All my beta readers and everybody said that I nailed it.
Yeah.
So it's, and then we explore that whole being on the spectrum a little bit more and getting into that. And him and Callie are just perfect for each other. It's so fun to watch them come together.
Yeah. So do you have like someone that or experience somebody that has been on the spectrum, and that, or did it just he kind of came in there because of like these slight obsessions that he has with things?
It started off as just his obsessions and just being a little bit quirky, but then like as I explored that more. I'm like, I think he's definitely on the spectrum. I do have some close friends that are on the spectrum, and I do have a cousin who's on the spectrum. And yeah, it's definitely important to have representation for those kind of people because obviously for everybody, and the people that read my book made sure, I tried to get some sensitivity readers so that I was actually portraying them correctly. I didn't want to mangle that at all either. And
Yeah.
I say it's just everybody deserves that chance at love.
Yeah, no, I loved it. It was really well done. So definitely good. So now that you have done it, are you still more of a pantser, or do you do like a mood board or a goal or something when you're setting up for your next books?
I always have mood boards are my favorite. I love those, and I have those. Actually, I have them up on my website right now for all four of the books. So they're out there if you want to see what I think of these people and what they look like. Then trying to mesh that with what the publisher has for my covers and stuff, that's always a challenge. And we're working on that for book 2 right now, trying to get the cover just right.
Yeah.
But I know now that I'm into book 3 and I've already written book 3 once, I'm going through and rewriting again. I like to do timelines. Like I'll just set up a whole timeline of what happened when, so then I can just look at it and be like, all right, so this happened here. Especially when I'm dealing like with Silas and Meg and stuff, I don't want it to be. I don't want to mess up any of that. There's some definitely overlap between book 3 and the end of book 2, and I got to make sure that I get those dates in there that are just right and figure out where everything is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a spider web, and you have to like
Yeah.
put it all together and make sure it all connects. So now that you have been, writing books for a little bit, how do you celebrate your milestones?
I usually like to we try and like for the big milestones like finishing a book or usually publishing a book, we'll go out for a big dinner. My husband, my daughter, and I, sometimes just my husband and I, have a bottle of champagne or some wine with him, and just have a celebratory mood. We don't usually do anything too big, but it's fun to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, of course. That's really great. So, in line with that, since you brought up the champagne, but obviously maybe not every time you write, but for when you write, is there a favorite beverage or snack that you always have to have while you're writing?
Well, I carry my water bottle everywhere. I'm all about hydration.
Yeah.
But my little treat, I usually have a Coke Zero once a day. And it's like my little treat. I don't usually eat much while I'm writing. Just I'm too focused on writing.
Yeah.
Like, oh wait,
in the zone.
Now.
Especially this book, which I don't want to give anything away, but there are some difficult topics or some heavier topics
Yes.
in The Wrong Brother. And how did that, when you were writing it, was it harder to write or to put that story out because of those like more triggered topics?
Yeah, because I'm a small press publisher, they don't do trigger warnings at the beginning of a book, which I don't like. I feel like
That's weird.
it deserves to know what they're getting
Yeah.
into. So I have all of that on my website for all of my books. I make sure to put it out there. I even put it, like, I think in my acknowledgments to make sure that you can check them there, because I definitely want people to be safe when they're reading, because everyone's mental state really matters,
Mhm.
Writing that, I actually toned it down for this for when I published it. I mean, the first draft it was more into the original incident, and I feel like it was bigger, and I tried to make it, I don't want it to be too triggering, obviously. Trying
Yeah.
to find that balance of what's realistic. And there was a lot of feedback actually on some of the reviews that maybe the incident didn't seem big enough for some people. And I'm like, well, everybody responds to that stuff differently, and how they handle it is differently. And I tried to imply that she did some therapy. That I don't know if that necessarily came across as well, because I've had some feedback on that too. But I mean, she handled it the best that she could, and for her character, not everyone handles that kind of stuff the same. So it's not a cookie cutter solution, and that's what I wanted to portray, that sometimes people take longer to get over stuff, and that's okay. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it was hard to write. I don't like putting my characters through stuff, and when there's some of that backstory comes, like, kind of reveals itself to me, I'm always like, I don't want to write that.
Yeah, you're like, no, I don't want to do that,
I
but
know,
you need
but
to.
it's all topics that need to be addressed. It's all, trying to be, everyone has to have an arc and wants to become a better person, and that's like, the end goal. And I like to write that kind of thing in my book, and just to show real life situations, and they're real life people that have different issues and different trauma and different backstories. So
Definitely liked how all the guys, like, they all had her back, but they all had something different that they did
yes,
that like helped her. Like they
yes,
weren't all cookie cutter, like walking on eggshells, like around her, but they all had like their little thing that they did that like slowly like chipped away at
yeah,
that you
her
showed.
support system was amazing, is amazing, and the brothers are some of my favorite characters. I love them, and like you said, they all have the different nuances, and each of them is able to help in a different way because of their different characteristics, and it's been fun to explore all that.
Yeah, they're found family dynamic. I mean, they're brothers, but she's kind of
Mhm.
like found family
Yeah,
dynamics
exactly.
with Meg because like even later on in the book when one of the other characters has like something happen and she steps up to be supportive and like it's not just one-sided. So like
No,
you sometimes I've in the past I've read books where there's multiple characters like that and they have a big thing and then another character will have something that's not necessarily as big but just like is devastating to them and it doesn't seem like balanced
okay.
that the other character like steps in like it's all focused on the one. So I like that you had that like balance, like even though she was going through stuff she like put that aside and she's like let me be there for you. Like I liked that a lot.
Good. I mean, and that's what found family is to me. And found family is super important to me. I have some really amazing friends that I consider my family, and that's one of my favorite tropes dynamics to write. And I use it in all the books that I published so far. And I say
Yeah,
it's definitely a balance. I
yeah,
don't
that's
want
great.
to sided. I mean, it's
Yeah, exactly. So do you have a moment that you can recall that you felt really proud during your journey with writing?
well, my first book. When I got the shipment of those, that was hilarious because so I knew that my author copies were coming, and they came from this weird. I got two packages that had like something about lighting on them, and I was like, "What the heck?" And we were literally on our way out the door for something. I don't know if it was my birthday was the same month the book was coming out. I don't know what we were doing, but we had to leave them on. We just left them on the counter. I didn't even know what they were. We left them on the counter. We went away for the weekend. We came back, and I'm like, okay, we got to figure out what these packages are. So then I open them, and I'm like, they're my books. So I'm like, and my family, like my husband and my daughter are both there, and we're all tearing up, and it was just like. It was. I think it was more fun because it was so unexpected. Like, hey, I get to read
Yeah,
a book. So I mean, that was pretty cool. And then, just I mean, watching the reviews. I know authors sometimes people don't like to look at their reviews and whatnot, but I always enjoy seeing what people say. I mean, good and bad. It's nice to have some sort of a base and some sort of feedback is always great. But seeing the way that my different stories have touched people, I mean, I touched on some interesting topics in the Cupcake Standard and that whole trilogy, and each one touches people in a different way. And just to see those people overcoming what they've been through has given other people hope and people can relate that way, and it's nice to see that people don't always think of romance as being a substantial thing, and I like
yeah, or developmental either.
yeah, so it's nice to have. I'm like, I like my fluff for sure, but I like to have a little bit of that extra substance to it too, and it's nice to see when people appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I read to get away, but I also like to read to feel like I'm not alone. And I also like to read with both of those things in mind and then be like, some quote hit me and I'm like, I didn't think of it that way because it's like a perspective shift or your paradigm shift. And then it just like, it's like a major like in your forehead. So I
Right.
love those kind of moments too.
Yeah, I definitely like that. And I mean, I'm an avid reader too, so if I can find the books and write authors that have that kind of a dynamic that straddles both the lines. I mean, there are times that I'm just like, I just want the fluff, I just want the smut, I just want the whatever. But I mean, there's other times that I'm like, okay, I would like a little bit more here. I would like some meat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So does writing energize you or does it make you tired?
Oh, I love writing. If I could do it, I would just write. I would never edit. I would never market. I would never do anything else. I would just write all the time. And so I have actually written and finished the first draft or more of 20 some odd novels. Obviously, I have not published them all yet. They're all in various stages of editing or whatever. And my critique partner has read the majority of them. I think he's amazing. But I have so many unfinished ones that are just like, hey. So whenever I get bored or I get stuck for something, I can just go through them and be like, all right, let's pop into this one again and see if it hits me. But Yeah.
Are those eventually gonna see readers, do you
I
think?
hope so. I hope so. I've got, there's so many, I love so many different genres. Like I have some sports young adult romances that are out there, like in my work in progress pile. I have dystopian, I have a why choose, I have some fantasy. So I'm like, I'm all over the board. So I'm like, I got to get a little bit of a base first.
Yeah.
We'll kind of go from there. I just announced today that I'm starting that new short stories series of the in elevator romances, and I think that'll be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm excited to read that. I think that'll be cute.
They're just
But
gonna be fun.
you could do it slowly, well, because you're kind of doing this series, and then you could go into, you said sports, and then you could like then branch over to fantasy.
Yeah, I say I, I'm all over the board, and I don't know how much I want to self publish. I don't know how much I want to try and traditionally publish. It just we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's I from talking to indie authors, it's hard. It's a hard job to do it, but it's worth it to do it. It's probably daunting, especially if you have multiple ideas that you want to get out in the world.
And I'm with the new series that I'm doing with the elevator ones is they are going to be completely self-published, and so it's going to be like my first foray into doing it all by myself. But being small press, I already do the majority of my marketing. I already do the majority of a lot of the stuff. So I feel like this is kind of actually nice because then I'm in full control of when I release stuff and how it and the end result turns out and my cover and everything. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah. So, what do you feel like is your writing kryptonite?
Well, like I said earlier, I hate hurting my characters. So whenever I get to that, like, bleak moment scene, I'm always like procrastinating and dragging my feet. I'm like, I don't want to do this, but plow through. And then I don't like editing. I drag my feet on that too, but I always like the end result. I mean, it turns out better and it's like, okay. But like when I actually have to go through someone else's feedback, and even if it's great feedback, it's just like, okay, my story wasn't perfect. And then you have to kind of wrap your head around that and just readjust. Like, all right, I'm going to make my story better and then dig right in. And, but yeah, those are kind of hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it would be daunting to like go back and edit. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the fun part. It's like, even in school, like, I was all about the fun part of writing, creative writing. But then when you had to go back and like fix it, you're just like,
Yes. This is not as fun.
yeah, exactly. So if you could go back in time and speak to your younger writing self now after you've, done several books, is there anything that you would tell yourself?
So I was studying creative writing in college. I got married at 19. I got married really young, and I don't regret that at all. We're still together. We love each other. It's great. But I kind of put my writing career on hold so I could support my husband through some different things. And I don't feel like I say it wasn't anything that he made me give up or anything like that. It was a mutual decision because I didn't feel like I could fully devote. I needed more time to fully devote to that without having a full-time job or whatever. But I think looking back, I would have been a lot easier to publish at that point. I mean, the publishing, after COVID, like everybody wrote a book and it got really saturated. I mean, there's so many good stories out there. So it's like, I can't complain about that, and there's so many talented authors. But even as I started writing again in 2018, and I pitched my first story at a conference in Chicago to a couple agents and they really liked it, but my writing wasn't quite up to par. So
Mm-hmm.
I could have done like a resubmit thing. But by that point, I was just like not confident enough to do any of that. So it's like if I had just kept up on it, I think that I would have been a lot farther ahead of where I am right now. So that's
Yeah.
kind of, but I'm also happy with it because it's a full-time job in and of itself. Like my daughter's 14 now, so it's like I would have had to put it on pause anyways, or I don't know how I would have done that with a 1, 2 year old. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
It'd be
So
hard. Yeah. It's a lot to manage. So, well, since you do say you like fantasy, even though you haven't put a fantasy book out there, I always like to ask my fantasy authors if they could be any mythical creature, what they would be and why. So
a
I'm gonna
dragon.
ask you.
Totally a dragon. I love dragons. I'm so like obsessed with them. I have a partial one that I've done with the dragon shifter thing, but I feel like that's probably going to be a pretty saturated market after Fourth Wing too. But I love dragons. They're so fun.
Totally, totally put it out there. I love those. They're like my bread and butter. I have a tattoo of a dragon up here on my arm. Like I love
Nice.
dragons. Dragon
Very
shifter
great.
books. There's never enough of them ever. There's never enough.
Okay, I'll get
So Definitely do it. So for you, what is the most difficult thing about writing?
Having too many ideas and focusing on one and actually finishing it. Like, I feel, well, so when I wrote Cupcake, I wrote that in like 2 weeks. It was like this, okay, I have it, I'm done. And I went, and then I let it sit while I wrote the second book. I mean, I wrote all three of those books from November to March, and that was like with having beta readers and editing and everything else. It was ridiculously fast. And I'm like, if I'm not hyper fixated on my story, like the 30,000 mark, 30,000 word mark is my make it or break it point. If I get there and I keep going, I'm usually good. But if like I kind of slow down and another idea comes to me, then I'm like, want to switch gears. And it's really hard for me to just stay focused and actually finish it. So yeah, I say I'm having that trouble right now with book 3 of the Writing Brothers. I'm like, I've written this before. I love them, but I have shiny new ideas that are calling my name, and it's really hard to stay focused on what I'm doing here.
Yeah, that would be hard. Do you do like a brain dump and write them all down, or do you just keep
Oh
them
yeah,
on?
my notes file on my phone has like 1,000 notes on it. It is ridiculous how many things I have. It's like, oh hey, wait, I can add that to that story. Hey, I can add that to that story. And it's like, okay, focus back on this.
That's great. So on the opposite, what is your favorite?
Well, beginning a new story is definitely my favorite thing because it's whole new settings and characters and stuff. But like actually in the writing is, I love to write banter. I love the snarky comments. I love the back and forth, and that is like I love that.
Yeah.
I love reading it. I love writing it. It's just it's fun. Got to have those
So
moments.
that's awesome. So then what's like a scene I know you said the emotional, like the when you have to do the bad news part of the character. Is there anything else that you're like, I don't want to write this? Is there any other moments?
Well, the smut parts can be hit or miss. It's like I either know exactly what I'm gonna do and what's happening, or it's like I want to just gloss over it and be like, okay, next.
Okay.
Because I want to move on with the character development, or it's like it just depends on what mood I'm in and whatnot. But sometimes those can be like another one. My character just stop for a minute. But I try to make those not like super gratuitous. I try to make it so it's like a kind of a plot moving forward type thing. But
Yeah.
there are times that it's just like, okay,
You're like, I want to write the banter now.
yes.
So what inspired you with writing or wanting to write? Was there anyone or something that inspired you?
So in fourth, fifth, sixth grade, somewhere in their upper elementary, every year we would write these, we would get a blank storybook that we got to make our own story. And they would choose a few people. This acting company would come in and they would act out some people's stories. And one of mine got chosen. It was the coolest thing. I got to sit up on stage in a director's chair and they acted out my stories and they had costumes for like my characters. And I was like, okay, I want to do this forever and everybody loved it. I'm like,
They do that everywhere.
I don't know. It was the coolest thing. And I'm like, why wouldn't they do this? This is like, I mean, and I get kids into writing and reading and watching stuff come to life like that. It was the best thing ever.
The biggest reward for a kid, like what motivation? Like I wish they did that like all the time.
I know.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, definitely a huge honor. And I still have the book somewhere, but yeah, it was awesome.
So then you kind of always wanted to be a writer, right? Or was there anything else you wanted to be or end up doing?
Nope. I mean, I was going to college for writing. I wanted to write. I did like a through the mail course right after my husband and I got married, but it was just, day to day, everyday life and just kind of fell by the wayside. So I always planned to eventually go back to it. And then again, in 2018 is when I got to drop down to part time. And I'm like, okay, now I have time to write. My kid is old enough. She's in school. I can write while she's in school. I don't have to work all the time. Yeah, okay. And yeah, I love every minute of it.
That's great. So this one might be hard because I've been told it's like picking your child. But do you have any of your main male characters that's like your favorite, or you'd be like, this is my book boyfriend, or this is who I would pick?
Book, I would give you like 25 of them. I mean, same thing with favorite movies. So trying to pick a favorite character because they all fulfill different aspects. It's like they're all so very different, and I try to do that on purpose, but I don't know. I mean, just trying to think of like the 4 Writing Brothers. Like Stephen is still an enigma to me, and he's finally coming to life a little bit in book 3. It's like, hey, there you are. I finally know you a little bit, And then I think Silas would be a super fun friend. I think Sean and I would get along really well. We'd be picking at each other all the time. And I think Sebastian would be fun, but he'd be kind of, difficult with some of my personality traits. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think any of them are perfect for me.
Yeah. Just a
I
little
love
bit of
them
each.
all, but
So we kind of talked about your favorite trope was found family. Are there any others that you either like to read and or like to write?
so I love fake dating. That was like I read Allie Hazelwood's The Love Hypothesis, and then I turned around and I wrote The Cupcake Standard. I was like, I have to write a fake dating book now. This is so cool. So
Yeah.
that is so much fun. And I really like, that's one of my favorite things about this elevator series is I'm doing a whole bunch of the little tropes and I get to explore all of them in just a little way because they're fairly short. So I'm working on a best friend's brother's best friend. There we go.
Mhm.
On right now. And I think that's one of my favorite tropes too, especially to read, but I haven't really explored that too much in my writing. I mean,
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And I also love like surprise pregnancy or like secret baby. That one's really good too.
yeah, I know
I
that
like
that is
reading
kind of a
those.
love hate for some people. It's like you either love it or you're just like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's several of those. So on the flip side of my other question about the book boyfriend, out of all of your characters, which one do you feel is like most like you?
they all have little bits of me in them. It's like, I think Avery would probably be the closest one to me. She's in the Cupcake Standard, the main one that kind of ties the whole series together. I don't think I'm quite as quirky as her. She's got some pretty random questions and some pretty funny ways she processes stuff.
Mhm.
She has a lot of like I gave her a lot of my eating habits and some of my preferences in some of that ways. It was kind of fun to explore that. But like Gina is in that series as well, and she has more of my type A personality and is a little bit my harsher side. And say like every one of them has a little bit of something of me in them. I try to like have that. There's a little.
Yeah.
Here's my quirk.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like a little bit of you goes into each book.
Yeah.
Like as the reader, I feel like I see a little bit of each author I've read. Like I'm like, oh, I see them in that. Especially after I've spoken with them, like doing an interview with them. I'm like, oh, I see it. I see it now. So I like that. That's my favorite part of reading it to
Oh,
like
that's fun.
discover that. So when you're writing, since you are a pantser, do you get like a certain like plot twist or a certain ending that you like know what's happening, or do the characters kind of like are so loud in your mind that they lead you there?
It's more character led, but I've heard it called like the spotlight method or the flashlight method, where I can see like several steps ahead and I know what's going to happen kind of next. But there are times like the very first book I wrote, one of the characters betrays another character and I was like mad at the character for like a week. I'm like, I don't know if I can write this. This is ticking me off.
Yeah.
So I'm just as surprised as the reader sometimes. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're going that way.
Yeah, it's definitely fun because it's like, is it like playing like a movie in your mind?
Oh yeah, I say that. And that's if I'm struggling to write, it's usually because I can't see it. If I don't see it, it's really hard for me to write. So it's like I have the whole thing going, and driving is one of my favorite times to like be processing some stuff, especially. But I don't do well like speech to text is just not my thing. I don't like speaking a lot. That's why I'm a writer. It's
Yeah.
like one-on-one stuff like this is fine, but speaking in front of people is not my forte. And just trying to speak to my phone and they don't understand me, it just makes me mad. So
Yeah.
I'll get home and I'll have to hurry up and write down everything I thought of. And then sometimes it's like I don't write it down and I go back to it and I'm like, wait, I was so much farther than that.
Yeah. And you're like, what happened? Where did it
Yeah,
go?
it was up there.
So within your writing process, do you like interview the characters once you kind of get them, or like have like character traits that like pop up that you write down?
I usually will make myself notes at the top of my file, like, oh, I got to go back and add that. Or it's like, hey, this person player is like a soccer player or something, So then I'll go back to the top and write in some little hints about adding in soccer that popped into my mind because that's Silas, who I'm working on right now. He's into soccer, and I'm like, okay, we got to make sure that gets all the way through. So I actually tried to go back and I have added that in through the rest of the series, like soccer stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. trying to get all that. It's like, oh, especially when you're writing a series like that, it's easier to have the series done. I did that with the first one. It was nice to have the whole series all the way done and then submit it. And I knew everything was done and the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I heard I had interviewed. She said that she recommends always doing like at least finishing book 1 and 2, if not 3, if you're doing more than one, so that it's like the momentum, like you don't have to like rush to get the second one out. So I feel like that would be I would be impatient. I think I would probably want to put it out right away and not want to wait, like having that time like in between. Like,
well,
I wouldn't want to sit on it.
Right. After I finish the first draft, I really do like to let it sit for a while because it will, if you get fresh eyes and you come back to it, there's a lot of things that you can notice and change and fix, and it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
It's nice. I mean, if you're doing a series like that, if you can go right into book 2 and then right into book 3, now you know all those things that are happening, and then when you go back to book 1, you're like, okay, I can do that with this in mind, especially from a pantser perspective. If you have an outline and you're actually able to follow that, then I'm so jealous.
Yeah. Do you ever have writer's block, or do you just switch to another story?
Generally, I can switch to another story, but there are usually after a big edit, revision, or finishing a first draft, I might have to take a little bit of time. And sometimes it's just like I'll reread one of my other partially finished work in progresses, since I have a billion of them, and just like kind of edit it, or just enjoy the story and just let it sit there. And then it kind of gives my brain a break while feeling like I'm accomplishing something. Or I'll try and catch up on my TBR and get some books read. But
yeah, I feel like us book girlies, it's never ending, and then it's like that sad realization that you will never get through your entire TBR.
Right. I've seen all those those memes where like the ghost comes back and is in the library trying to finish up their TBR. I'm like, that's gonna be me.
Me too. So, how do you find time to write now? Like, do you have a certain time of day or a certain word count or goal or scene that you aim for?
So I'm usually a scene writer, and I want to get this scene done because I know what's gonna happen through that scene, and then the next scene will come to me. I try and write every day, at least a little bit. And generally, my daughter's in school, during the day, so I can write some of that time. Obviously, I have house chores and errands and all that lovely stuff too. And then she's got a lot of extra curricular activities after school that keep us busy and running. And she's, like I said, she's 14, so I have to run her everywhere yet. But I do try to write every day. And so it depends. Sometimes I think my average is probably around 3,000 words a day, which isn't too bad. But there are days that it's 10 or 15,000, and there are days that it's 5. So it's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. Well, that's really awesome though. That's a lot of words in a day for sure. That average is 3,000.
I'm a very fast writer, but I don't do the clean drafts. I just get it down, and then I have to go back and I have to edit, and I know that. So it's like, okay, if I can just get this down, then I have something to edit, and that's my building block. I can start from there, and then I can go up.
Yeah. So with the covers that you do you enjoy that process, or is that process daunting?
So I designed the full cover for the going up, the new one, by myself. The other ones, since I'm small press, it kind of goes through them, but I tell them kind of what I have in mind. And at times I would rather have just give me the stuff and I'll do it myself. It's like, this is what I'm picturing and you're not quite hearing me. So
yeah,
it is a process, and I enjoy that kind of, like, I like making graphics and I like making all that. That's one of my favorite parts. So I think that the cover designing aspect is fun.
Yeah, I think the cover of The Wrong Brothers is so cute. I love the cover. It's so like I saw the cover first. Like that's what I saw.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, that's so cute. And then I read the blurbs and the tropes and I'm like, okay, I'm reading this. Like the cover just stood out to me and it was so cute. I was like, oh
yeah.
I want to read that.
I couldn't pick just one thing for the cover. I'm like, okay, what else can we do? And I was like, what if we do 3 snapshots? And I loved how all the colors flowed, and it just gave it that kind of the beachy feel from like their spring break trip, and it just nailed it perfectly. So I have high hopes for book choose cover, and it's just, we're having, like I said, we're struggling with that right now. So it's like, okay, I know it'll get there, but I really want it to be done.
Well, for him, like in my mind, I'm picturing like his obsessions, like on a desk, like scattered on the desk, and then she just is in the light coming forward, like blurring that all out.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in my mind. I love.
That's a very accurate description of the two of them, though. Him and his.
Yeah. Well, that's what I got. Like, the whole ending where you're setting up stuff, I was like, that's what I see. Like, that's like in my mind, I was like, just like horse blinders and like this bright light coming and distracting him. I was like, this is gonna be good. So what do you think makes a great story? Like your opinion of what makes a great story?
I like stories that are character driven. I like to see a really great character, and especially people that are characters that are like realistic and not, 2D, and then they have flaws and they have issues. And I mean, we all read to escape, but it's nice to see some sort of something that you can relate to. I mean, nobody's perfect. So I love that. And of course, banter is, my kryptonite. I love a good banter, and just having that kind of back and forth is just, and I love tension. I'm such a sucker for romance, and it's like I read other stuff too, but I like to have at least a romance subplot. It's just the happily ever after, the good feels. I need that.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like everybody needs that. So what are some of your, I know you can't pick one, but what are some of your favorite books and or authors that you like to read?
So, well, Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood was definitely
So good.
a big inspiration for me. I like some of her other stuff. I haven't read a lot of her newer stuff, so I'm not sure on that. I loved the whole Sarah J. Maas's, I love her ACOTAR series. I really like Crescent City. I know that's not everyone's favorite, but I absolutely love Hunt, and I know that he's a kind of a trigger character for some people. They either love him or they hate him. I really liked like Vampire Academy. That was one of my favorites when they were starting with the vampire stuff. And I mean, of course, I was a Twilight fan, and trying to read those books now, though, it's always a little bit, it's like, okay, it's a good story, but
Yeah.
I've really been trying to read a lot more indie authors, and just, finding stuff on Stuff Your Kindle Day or just on Kindle Unlimited, and reading some of the different authors out there. Christine Lane is my critique partner, and I love all of her stuff. And then one of my other friends is Kristen Blacketer, and she has written, I think, like 30 novels. And I mean, they're all usually on the shorter side, but she's been all over the spectrum. She's got contemporary romances out there. She's got fantasy. She's got historical. I'm just,
Ooh, I'll check her out.
yeah, she's got some amazing, and they're all really good stories. And I'm just like, how do you do all this? So of course, there's a whole bunch that I've just read that I can't even think of right now, but I want to get into the Christmas stuff, and I'm trying to catch up on some of my other stuff first. But I'm like, I really need to read. I want to read the Megan Quinn's newest one. I can't remember.
I just got it. So Audible right now, and I think it ends today. They have it on sale at like 80 something% off.
Oh wow!
I got it for like, I think like $10,
nice.
And I'm like,
okay.
So I went a little crazy on Audible, and I bought a whole bunch of Christmas because I love Christmas, and I'm like, so yeah. I went down the rabbit hole a little bit and spent a little bit more than I should have on some Christmas stories. But there's some great ones on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah. I finished with one today. I'm going to hopefully finish it here later on today, but it was so cute. And I was like, I'm actually interviewing that author in a few weeks. So I'm like, I love all these Christmas books, but definitely do a Christmas book one day.
The next one I really want to do is Oh Goalie Night by Cam Gillis, and it is the most adorable cover with this hockey mask with the lights, and I'm like, and I keep seeing stuff about it. I'm like,
I saw it.
I need to read that.
Yes, I want to read that one too. Is there any like kids books that you really loved when you were younger that like really stuck with you?
Hang on one second. I'm getting over a cold, so my throat keeps going. Kids books. Just trying to think of, what did I read when I was younger? There was a couple really obscure ones. There's I can't even remember the authors of them. There was one that was After the Dancing Days, which was a war book. Like, this lady helped in like the aftercare of soldiers, and it was a very short one. I went through a whole phase where I loved all the war stuff, and then of course there was the I can't even think of the word right now. the mythology phase. I had to do all those, and I loved classics. So I mean, a lot of what I read in high school, of course, with the the curriculums and everything were the classics. But I love Jane Austen. I love the Little House on the Prairie series. I have a whole book, like I have a literal library upstairs in my house, and I have a whole bookshelf full of just the classics because they're so good. We had this abridged classics collection. They were these little square books that were just chunky, and they weren't quite the full story, but they were most of the story, and they had illustrations and stuff in them. And we read the I wish my mom hadn't gotten rid of those because those are just, it was a whole collection of them, and that really introduced me to a lot of that. That was really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, we're kindred spirits. I have a library. My kids have ABA therapy. They come to our house. So we had a new therapist come about a month ago. And so we had the front house, when you come in my front of my house, it's the whole wall had like a drop in. And so I put bookshelves in there.
Nice.
So I was like, why didn't they build this with bookshelves? Well, I put them in there. So, and that's literally all of my kids' books. There's 5 of them. Okay. And they're 5 shelves each. Yeah. And they are full, jam-packed with kids' books. And he was like, you guys have quite a library. I'm like, oh no, that's just the kids' library. My library is upstairs and it is full too. So it's, I love that. I think like reading is, you can live so many lives by reading. So I definitely love encouraging that in people and in kids and in life.
My daughter's the same way. She loves books. We read so much to her as a kid. We recently finished a remodel upstairs, and we did a bunch of recessed bookshelves, and they are just completely chock full with everything. And I mean, she's just been loving like the Percy Jackson series. The One and Only Ivan, I'm like, those were so good. And I still like to read the young adult stuff because it's just like, there's a lot of good stuff.
Well, so what is the most surprising thing you've learned as an author or on your writing journey?
The whole process is just, it was like, I think a lot of people just think that you can just go publish a book. And I mean, I guess you can now on Amazon. Anybody can just go out there and just like upload their thing and be done with it. But if you want quality, it's going to take a lot more than just writing a book. I mean, when I learned about beta readers, that was probably one of the most life-changing things for me. People, exchanging manuscripts and giving each other feedback. That has been a huge part of my journey, because it not only I could read someone else's work and be like, well, that doesn't work, or hey, that actually is really cool and I really like that, and just the stylized of everything. It's like, all right, so that kind of shows the flow and whatnot, and it helped me become a better writer in the process. Plus, then I get their feedback and see what works with my stories. And yeah, that's been a huge game changer for me. Is trying to get, it's not, it's like, even if you can't afford editing, if you take the time to get beta readers, at least somebody else has read it, and you get so close to your stories. It's hard to it's like, I thought I had this detail in there, and it's just, well, it's in my head, but I never put it on the page,
Yeah.
Or that's actually a plot hole. You forgot about this character about a third of the way through, and they never showed up again. What happened to them?
Like, where did they go? So, have you changed your process with publishing from where you started when you first started writing to now? Like how you do things? Have you changed a lot?
I think I've changed a lot. I do think that my first drafts are stronger, but I don't outline. I just write, and I know I'm going to have to go back and do it, and then I let somebody else read it, and then we go from there. Yeah, it's still a pretty same process.
I know you said you did creative writing in school. Do you do classes still now, or more just read and write?
I've just been doing, beta reads for other people, and I've done a few like webinars and a couple different things. I went to a couple conferences. It's been a few years now, but I don't have time. Yeah. Get these stories to write, and then my kids find different things. So I'm like, all right, I got to do this other stuff.
Have you ever done a signing?
I have. I've done one book signing, and that was in Lansing, and I was with another author friend of mine. She published her young adult novel about the same time mine came out, and so that was kind of fun to have that journey together. And it went well. It was mostly family that came, and I was super nervous because we found out like the day of that they wanted us to read like excerpts and all this other stuff. Like when we got there, we thought it was just going to be a signing, and we're like, okay, so what am I going to read? And yeah, but I don't know if they've changed, but being small press, they were going through, it wasn't Ingram Sparks, it was something else. So it makes it really hard for bookstores to get my stories. They did change, but I don't know if they went to them. I don't know who they went to. So I need to check that out again. But a lot of places will want to have your books on hand, which makes sense. And they do if they can't get it for you, they do something called consignment. Well, they will get a certain percentage of your book. And it's just not cost effective right now. And I'm like, I would have to charge readers way too much for my books, and I don't like that. I say
Yeah.
my books are kind of already high priced, and that's the press. So I don't want to gouge anybody.
Yeah.
So kind of waiting to see what happens. Like I said, we have a new printer now, so I'm not sure if that'll change things at all, but maybe.
Oh, well, hopefully, yeah. That'd be cool to go into a store and see your book there and have it for sure. That would be very cool. So do you know your love language, or do you figure out your character's love language and try to incorporate that in your writing?
We did the love language thing, my husband and I'm trying to remember what mine actually ended up being. I can't even choose a favorite of those. Like it was like three of them, but I definitely like, words of affirmation was one of them, and I think touch was the other one. But I do keep that in mind with my characters. I'm sorry. And like Silas specifically is touch. Like his love language is physical touch. He's probably my first character that has had that, and it's like, well, that introduces a whole different dynamic. But if you look at him through the other couple books, you see that, and it was kind of like when I got to his book, it's like, that makes sense.
It's like the light bulb ding.
Yep.
So what is something unique or quirky about you?
I don't know. I have chickens, and I write outside with my chickens during the summer, especially. I mean, obviously not so much in the winter when it's snowing outside, but I have my husband and my daughter got me this awesome chair for, I think it was a Mother's Day, and it's kind of like a metal swingy chair, and I prop my feet up on this little stool thing that I have out there and let my chickens run around, and I have one that will come and sit on my armrest and peck at my I'm like, are you helping me type? What's going on here? And that's quirky.
That's awesome. I would love that, but we're not allowed to in California. Like we have to be in a certain zoning, and so we aren't allowed to do that. But I would love to have some chickens and fresh eggs and all of that. But I love that. Do you have any other hobbies that you do besides writing?
Reading stories are my life. Like I collect movies too. I'm like, I love watching movies, I love reading books, and I love reading other people's stories, and I love writing stories. I mean, that's what I do. But my daughter is in theater, and she's in band, and she's in bowling. So that's kind of a hobby right now, is just going to all of her many things.
Yeah.
It's super fun to go to all that. I really enjoy it.
Do you like to watch old movies or more modern movies?
A mix. I say I love musicals. I love the old movies. I like new movies. We just went and seen Moana 2 yesterday. That's a whole family. That was fun.
So
and
good.
My sister-in-law and my niece and my daughter all went and seen Wicked the other day. And I'm like, there's so many good movies out. I love going to the theater. It's so expensive, but I love it.
Have you ever seen, it's an older film, it's called The Thin Man?
I've heard of it. I don't remember if I've seen it or not.
They're really great. My favorite is the second one. It's called After the Thin Man. It has Jimmy Stewart in it.
I love Jimmy Stewart. He's great.
He's in that one, and
Okay.
It's when he was younger, and he is a phenomenal actor in that one. So if you want a good old film movie night, check that one out for sure. So if you had a moment that you're like, I made it, like I did it. Have you had that yet? Not yet?
I had a person tell me that I was their favorite author, and that really felt like yeah, I'm like, I made it. This is really cool. I'm someone's actual favorite author, and I'm like, that was an honor, and it was huge.
That's really great. That's really, really great. So when you are writing, do you have, after you finish, like some stuff you do to like help you unwind before you jump into the next thing?
I usually take my time to read something else or try and give my brain a break one day. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it's just static up there and it's like, okay, I definitely need to take a break.
Yeah. Yeah. So my last question for you is what message you want readers to take away after reading your book?
I feel like love is healing, and it's not just like romantic love, friendships and all the different kinds of love. And I try to explore that in all my books, and just love can make people stronger, love can bring people together, and I feel like that's at the heart of all of my stories.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to be seeing book 2 in April. Is there any other books coming out before that, or is that the next in line for you?
That's the next in line, other than my short ones that are, I'm not sure. I'm definitely Going Up is coming out in January, and I have the next 3 written, but I'm not quite sure when I'm going to publish those yet. It just depends on how the beta reading process goes and the editing and all that. I might try and sneak one more in the summer, but Silas and Meg's story will be coming out next fall.
We got a couple books from you coming. So one in January, April, and then fall time frame. Yeah. I'm excited. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. It was so great talking to you.
You too.
And thank you. And then I put her information below so you can find her website with the mood boards and her books, and then any trigger warnings to check before you start reading anything. Definitely do that. And then please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have a book bestie that you think would love to watch this or learn more books to add to the TBR like we all do, please share it. And then join me next time as we get a look behind the book. Thank you so much.